What's going on, guys? As you can tell by the title, this is going to be a Season 8 tier list, and I know some of these have already been created. Specifically, I'd like you to go check out my man Doggy. He made a tier list for duels specifically. This is going to be a little bit different from his in the fact that I'm going to look at duels and 4v4 modes. So I'd recommend checking his out. I'll put a link to it in the top of the description so you guys can go show some support on that. But I wanted to give my own take on this, on what characters I kind of feel are the strongest, which ones are the weakest. I'm not going to explain so much in depth because I feel if I explained a ton from each character, we would be here all day and this would be like a 45-minute video. But I'm going to try to touch on the best points that I can. And I just want to say again, this is an opinionated video, although a lot of people will agree with it. There's obviously going to be some things that people just don't agree with for other reasons. And then we can have a polite discourse in the comments below. I can't believe I said that. It's YouTube fucking comments. There's not going to be anything polite. But so basically everything's going to be ranked from S to D, D being the worst, S being the best, quote unquote, for 1v1s and 4v4s together. And then, yeah, let's just get right into it, guys. So starting off in the D tier, we're going to have Shigoki. Obviously, people know at this point that Shigoki's pretty weak. His lack of an opener is really the thing that's holding him back, making him having to basically rely on his passive hype armor to do any sort of trading. In 4v4, he can have a little bit more of an impact if he, having Rock Steady is a really good feat, as well as if he's able to clip people with his Unblockable, it can do a lot of damage to people, but still, if he gets ganked, he's pretty much dead. Just basically dead. He doesn't have really great target switching or anti-gank moves basically in him. And then the next person that we're going to be looking at is ARAMUSHA. Now, I should say that, again, I am looking at only PC because I'm a PC player. So ARAMUSHA is really, really predictable. You basically know his attacks can go, top side, and then they can do the soft feint to a different direction. It's all very, very easy to block and parry on PC. It's pretty bad for him. He doesn't have really reliable initiation, although he does have the zone, which is quite quick. It's still, again, pretty easy to block and parry if it goes through. And his blade blockade is kind of like hit or miss. Sometimes it doesn't always go through. Like if someone throws a top attack and then you try to do the top heavy, that won't connect because their guard was already in the top, things like that. He does, however, have some pretty good feats in 4v4. He has Rock Steady, which I think is one of the best feats in the game. And then he has Fear Itself and Sharpened Blade, which are a deadly combination together. But again, he doesn't have a great range on his attacks, making anti-ganks a little bit harder, and he doesn't have great AoE on them. So he's more of a 1v1 fighter, but he sucks in the 1v1s already, so it's kind of bad for him. Moving on into the C tier, we're going to be looking at Raider. Now, Raider is one that obviously a lot of people know. Again, struggling from the same issues of not having a reliable opener, having very slow lights. The stunning tap mix-up is extremely easy to react to, and if you parry that, which honestly you should if you see it come through, it's a free light parry, so it's really difficult for a Raider to make any sort of plays unless they just simply outplay their opponent. The one good thing that kind of Raider has in duels is that quick dodge guard break. If they are able to dodge out of an attack, that's a pretty solid move. But in Dominion, they can provide a little bit more help with like a stampede charge, putting them to the wall that pins them. So that helps out your team quite a bit more. Being able to keep someone stun locked for a couple seconds is a really great tool. And, oftentimes you don't see the Raider coming from off screen. So that's one of the redeeming qualities of Raider. But other than that, he's got great damage on the Unblockable. He can clip people from it in Dominion, but with like the nerfs to no like gear stats, that's not going to be doing as much in Revenge and whatnot, so he still struggles quite a bit. Next character we'll be looking at in the C tier is going to be Centurion. Now, Centurion is, I'd say, a little bit better in the 1v1s than he is in Dominion, but on PC, if you get hit by a kick, that's kind of on you, I guess. It's pretty darn reactable, honestly, and even if they just dash forward, go for the GB, it's quite reactable. Jabs are pretty easy to react to, and you shouldn't just, what you need to do is if you just play defensive against the Centurion, there's really not much they can actually do, because their soft feints, if you just kind of wait and don't try to parry everything, you're not going to get caught by them, which is good. One redeeming quality, obviously, from Centurion is he gets a heavy parry off of any attack. So if he's able to combo this with the knee and get you into a wall, he might be able to get you a full charged heavy into a jab. but, you know, that doesn't always happen. In 4v4s, I think, again, he suffers from a lack of range, making anti-gank scenarios pretty difficult. If you get a charge jab, you're most likely going to be knocked out of it from someone else on the enemy team, and it's just kind of a bad time for you. The final character in C, and again, these aren't in any order. I'm not saying, like, specifically this is going in order. They just fall in this tier, is going to be Peacekeeper. Peacekeeper used to be at the top of the tier lists kind of for how strong she was, but after she got her update, she became much weaker. She did less damage. She just really kind of fell off on like all consoles and PC alike. You don't see too many PKs running around. She has her zone that she's able to feint to a bleed, but it's only to the top, which is pretty darn tragic, because if you're able to, you know, just predict that that's going to go through or see that the attack come through, it's a light parry. It's pretty solid. And again, her heavies can be soft feinted, but it's all only to the top. So as long as you can switch your guard from the side that the heavy is originally coming from to the top, you should be okay. And again, having an assassin, she automatically has a little bit of a disadvantage because of the reflex guard. In 4v4, she can do some nice jumping attacks, dodge attacks as well to be a little bit better in the anti-gank scenarios, and I believe she also has Fear Itself and Sharpened Blade, which are, again, good perks. But being an assassin, being that low health, getting ganked, usually doesn't end up in your favor, so she's pretty weak. Moving on to the B tier, we're going with Orochi. Orochi got reworked recently. I don't think Orochi's insane, but definitely think he was better than he was before. Again, there's no actual, like, real reliable initiation for an Orochi. There's no, like, kick. There's no unblockable, like, punch or anything. They basically just have to rely on stuff like the Storm Rush, which is like the different directions now which you're able to do from the top, left, and right, which is pretty solid. And then you just basically have to rely on those chain light delays, which are really, really quick and hard to react to. A good Orochi will really destroy you on that. And I think Orochi also has one of the, you know, better deflects in the game. You can do a light deflect, you can do a heavy deflect, and you can also cancel that heavy deflect into something like a guard break if you want to, you know, if you think that someone's going to dodge out of it. It's a pretty solid move as well. So where, again, the Orochi falls is if you're a little bit more defensive against them, you can react to initial lights pretty easily, heavies as well. The zone's still pretty quick, but I think you can still react to it. And then the reflex guard obviously puts Orochi at a little bit of a disadvantage. In 4v4, that does have, I don't know if they nerfed their first feat, that Ki or whatever, the scream that basically stuns you, but that was a really, really strong feat before. I'm not sure if it got nerfed, but that's a really good thing that Orochi has. Moving on next is Lawbringer, and you guys might be thinking Lawbringer is pretty high on my list, and I will be the first to say Lawbringer is absolutely trash in duels. All right, you basically have the same thing as Shigoki, where he has to rely on his block shove, really, to get any sort of trade in. Like Shigoki has to rely on the passive hyper armor. But, yeah, in duels, I would say it's one of the worst characters. In 4v4s, however, his feats and his ability to help in ganks makes him actually pretty decent in 4v4s, and why he's still picked quite a bit. Having all of the bombs, I think they might have nerfed Igneous Ember, but still having the bombs available to you creates a lot of damage, and being able to just kind of run around and kind of poke people off screen and often get them into a wall for a big punish is really good, and that's why you still see him being played in 4v4, and that's why I've placed him in the B tier. Next character in B is going to be Jiang. Now, Jiang, strengths definitely would be speed of the attacks plus the damage. The speed plus damage combo of Jiang is actually quite good for how quick, like, his follow-up lights are and his zone parry riposts and stuff. They're quite strong, and they do quite a lot of damage. I think those are probably going to get tweaked pretty soon. I think Jiang is a pretty damn beast in 4v4. The AoE on his attacks are great, and he's really, really fun to use in anti-gank scenarios, and you often find yourself winning out on those. In duels, it's not as easy for JJ. A lot of people think just like you can just Sifu's poise out of anything, you know, get your stamina back, you're good to go. But if someone's constantly putting pressure on you, you're not going to be able to get into that. You can get guard broken out of it really easily, and JJ's heavy attacks starting up can be interrupted extremely easily. And that's kind of why in 4v4s it's much better for him, so he can kind of try to clip other characters as he's fighting. Next person in B is going to be Valkyrie. Valkyrie now got a rework recently as well. I think it's better than what she had before, but I still think there's a few things that she needs in order to be, you know, a higher tier. I would say sweep is extremely reactable in a 1v1. You shouldn't get hit by it. Even the shoulder bash is extremely reactable in 1v1. follow-up lights even. I think you can parry the if not the first, the second light in the chain. I think you can parry those. In 4v4s, I would say she's a little bit better because you're not expecting like a bash from the side. But in 1v1s, it finds that she's a little bit weak. Although the things that she did get that improved was like her superior lights that do like 27 or 28 damage. That's a big improvement. And, you know, she feels more fluid as a character, kind of being able to chain your combos into different things, and she also got more damage on her heavies, which is why she's been pushed up from probably before a C tier character now to a B tier. Final character in tier B is going to be Nobushi. Now, Nobushi's whole claim to being in B is her hidden stance. It's basically all the character has. It's the best all guard, I would say, in the game due to the fact that you can guard break out of it. You can kick from neutral, you can throw heavies, you can, you know, basically mask all of your attacks with it. There's things like if you do a heavy from hidden stance, you get a confirmed kick off of it. So there's these little things that are pretty good with Nobushi. Although if you're just doing normal attacks and not, you know, really utilizing that hidden stance, everything is pretty telegraphed and pretty easy to parry. Although Nobushi does do quite a lot of damage, having a 38 damage guard break from neutral. Just a top heavy does 38 damage, which is quite nice. And she can do some pretty nice things in anti-ganks, being able to proc bleeds and switching to targets after kicks and whatnot. She's very good in that, and she can work well with other characters such as, you know, Shaman, PK, other bleed stacking characters. But being able to kind of telegraph her attacks and them not being super fast kind of puts her not being able to be in that A tier list. Speaking of A tier list, the first person that we're going to talk about in this is NUXIA, and I would say NUXIA is better in 4v4 than 1v1s, but in 1v1s, she is pretty nice. She's got a pretty solid kit. You know, although people say traps are easy, you just gotta, you know, attack, dodge, put your guard to the other side. It's almost like throwing out your convention against every other character when you play against this one. And again, I know that you have to adapt, but I still think her traps are actually not as bad as like people initially thought they were. She has very quick light follow-ups. She can follow up after a missed trap, which can catch you off guard as well. And her heavy finishers, if she gets them off, if you expect a trap to come through, can throw into a wall, and she can get even another heavy. In 4v4, one of the most annoying things about NUXIA is caltrops. The cooldown on those is crazy, and they stay up for a very long time and just slowly whittle away your damage, and it's almost, you know, unfightable on that. You just need to get away from them because they're so annoying. Also, Infection is a pretty solid 4th feat. It does quite a lot of damage, especially if there's multiple teammates around. So that's why she's A. She's not quite S, but she's pretty solid in both game modes, I would say. Next character we're going to look at is TIANDI, and I know a lot of people are probably annoyed with TIANDI, and you'd think he's really strong, maybe an S character. You know, he might be in duels, but there's a couple things lacking from TIANDI. Obviously, he's got great movement, good feints, pretty quick, has good openers, you know, he can chain a lot of different attacks, but he doesn't do that much damage, honestly. If you get a heavy through, yes, it does pretty good damage, like 30, but it's very rare that you're going to get a heavy through because of how slow they actually are. If you get one through, then consider yourself lucky. And in 4v4s, he feels even worse just because he has like no range at all, being able to fight in any anti-gank. Even with Revenge, you just feel like, you know, you light one character and then switch to the other character, light them. You feel like you just barely did a little tick to their health bar, and it takes quite a long time for you to actually be able to, you know, take down multiple enemies. So he feels so bad in 4v4. Coming from me who plays him, I feel like he is really damn good in 1v1s, but not so much in 4v4. Next character on this list is Shinobi. I think Shinobi can do pretty solid in duels. Sometimes other characters, like I think Kensei is pretty solid against Shinobi. I know a lot of people have been starting to do the slide tackle strat on Shinobi, which is really just kind of annoying to deal with. It's kind of similar to like the Warlord crashing charge, but it's not as effective. I'd say probably the strongest thing, however, about Shinobi in just entirety is being in 4v4s and being able to do ranged guard breaks. A lot of the times you're not expecting it. You get hit with the ranged guard break, they pull you down. It's another one of those attacks that can pin you and keep you locked for a few seconds. And if you're near a bunch of enemies, a Shinobi range guard breaks you, you're most likely dead. Like, you can't get out of it even if you build up Revenge, because you're locked down there until the 3 hits of the bleed after the heavy come through, and that makes Shinobi a really, really viable person to have on your team in Dominion especially, and I think you can definitely outplay people on duels as well. It might take a little bit more challenging. I would say Shinobi's probably more in like the B tier when it comes to duels, but I think it's pretty solid in Dominion. Next character that we're going to be looking at is Warlord. Now, I know Warlord is considered one of, if not the best duelists in the game, like S tier for sure, because of the crashing charge, especially if you're on a map like the pit or the ring, where it's just a nice small circle. That strategy works so well, and it's just insanely hard to go up against the Warlord, merely for the fact of that crashing charge or GB mix-up that they can do. Now, I put them in A because I feel like the Warlord isn't as effective in 4v4s, just because they're not in those 1v1 scenarios where they thrive the best. Having all the other members on the team, you can interrupt a lot of the stuff that the Warlord's trying to do. You're often not going to get off a full crashing charge. It is kind of effective if you use by like ledges. So Warlord isn't by any means terrible in 4v4s, can still hold his own, but just not crazy to the extent of they are in 1v1s. I'd much rather see a Warlord being played in 4v4s than in 1v1s. The next character in A is going to be Shaman. Now, Shaman is a character that a lot of people really do not like, simply because she's kind of annoying to fight against, and I can completely understand that. She has a ton of mix-up tools, right? From having chain finisher unblockable heavies that you can soft feint, having any heavy that you throw being able to soft feint, being able to soft feint your heavies into bleeds, being able to soft feint your zone into a bleed. You know, the being able to feint out of your jumps for like either your headbutt or your bleed bite. Those are also really annoying too. She has her jumping heavies that are really strong, and she also has those side dodge heavies that do 25 damage that are quite quick that come through. But, you know, you can still deal with the Shaman, right? She's quite strong, but obviously you can still deal with her, you know, as long as you've got, you know, like a team in Dominion, you know, if you're able to fight on her. I think if she's being like ganking you, I think you're in more of a troubled spot, especially if the other team has an Ibushi or like a PK or someone else with a bleed. That way, just she can jump off screen and basically bite you, which can be really annoying. But for the most part, if she's getting ganked herself, she can kind of struggle. Obviously, assassins aren't as great as that. She doesn't have insane range on most of her attacks unless she gets into like revenge and she's able to just kind of jump back and forth with her heavies, because those do track really, really nicely. But other than that, you should be able to will her down. She is a very strong character, but I feel like she wasn't strong enough to be able to put herself into that S category. The final character in the A tier that, again, is probably an S tier duelist is the Gladiator, simply because the Gladiator zone is the safest move in really the entire game. That just makes them basically, you throw it out, you miss, you feint it. You throw it out, you hit, free damage. So it's really, really good to use. Although the one real negative thing about Gladiator is his guard is absolutely atrocious. So you can definitely get hits in on a Gladiator. But if you're near a wall, you can get deflected, skewered, thrown to a wall. It does quite a lot of damage. In 4v4s, though, I think that Gladiator is really shit. It's got terrible minion clear. And I think that it's just really easy to react to a Gladiator trying to target switch in team fight, especially if they get ganked. I think most of the time you'll be able to take out a Gladiator if you're ganking with your teammates. He just doesn't feel nearly as strong in that. And it feels specifically, you know, the Gladiator is meant for one-on-one combat. That's just kind of how they are. And you can definitely tell the differences between the 1v1 and the 4v4. Now we're in the S tier. Now S tier doesn't mean the character is broken. It just means that they are good and viable in both the 1v1 and the 4v4 modes. Now the first one that we're actually going to go to is Kensei. Now I think Kensei is an A tier duelist, has great mix-ups, but the downfall of Kensei in those is being able to start up the mix-ups. The top heavy is very, very slow, and being able to, you know, soft feint light, soft feint heavies. A lot of people parry those, and a lot of people can, you know, react to the mix-ups. If you can catch a lot of people off. I think the best thing that Kensei has going is you start that top heavy, dash forward into a GB. It's a really effective tool in duels. And in 4v4s, I think Kensei is one of the best characters, simply for the fact that his target switching is actually insane. However, at super high ranks, it's not quite as effective because people are able to parry them because the attacks do come in pretty slow. But if you're just playing pubs, you're able to kind of switch between your targets very, very easily. You can dash one way on a person, switch to the other character, swift strike them, maybe switch back for a light finisher. And Kensei just feels really, really fluid in anti-ganks, and it's probably one of the best characters in anti-ganks. The next character that we're going to be looking at is CONQUEROR. Now, everyone knows CONQUEROR is insanely good in basically everything because, you know, the shield bash, the all block does good damage, zone is really, really good, but in duels everyone knows basically how effective a CONQUEROR can be. If they just do like shield bash mix-ups, it's really, really hard to deal with. In 4v4s, it's really damn annoying if a CONQUEROR just kind of sits in the middle of minions and unlocks zones. You can't actually get near them, which is really, really annoying as well. They provide good ganking as well. You can just get bashed from the side, and if you have someone else to deal with, it's gonna be really, really hard for you. They got pretty good feats like heal on block, which is pretty solid. Anytime you just block an attack, you get health back. In my opinion, that's pretty good. And, you know, everyone, I don't think I need to explain too much. I think most people would say CONQUEROR is one of the strongest characters in the game. Next character is going to be BERSERKER. Now, they reworked BERSERKER with Kensei and CONQUEROR back in Season 5, and BERSERKER just got the hyper armor overhaul of a century, man. This dude can trade with hyper armor like no other. He's got a top unblockable finisher that he can feint or throw through, and if he feints through, you can get a GB, and he just does a ton of damage altogether. And again, might be even a little bit better than Kensei in terms of anti-ganking from how quickly you can get attacks through and continue to throw them because of that hyper armor. And he does quite a lot of damage. If you're going up against a Berserker who has revenge, I would definitely say back the hell up because it's super hard to fight against them. And likewise in 1v1, the hard feints on the heavies into the lights can be pretty damn difficult to react to. You can block them, obviously, but not too many people parry them consistently unless you have really good reactions. I'm not one of those people, and I think most people would say that Berserker is a really, really solid character. The next person that we're going to be putting in the list is Highlander. This is a potential one of controversy. Some people might not think he's S, maybe A. I think he's probably... the fact that he's both good in duels and in 4v4s, like he's a good character to pick, makes him kind of S altogether. In 1v1s, you can do a lot of stuff with, whiffing the lights, going into your offensive stance. The kick into caber toss is still pretty hard to dodge unless you dodge roll, and you don't always have the stamina for that. Offensive lights are really good. Crushing counter is really good. And when you're in offensive stance, being able to dodge out of attacks from basically anyone and then just kick them right after, you do a lot of damage. And specifically in 4v4 as well, you can gank really, really nicely from coming over with either, caber toss, a kick, just throwing through your unblockable, and you do a ton of damage, especially in revenge. If the hyper armor heavies are coming through from the normal stance, the Highlander is a very, very effective character. I know they might have nerfed actually one of the feats, the Spear Storm, but that is a extremely good fourth feat. It's like Arrow Storm was just like snowflakes, and spears if you're in the Spear Storm, you're basically dead. So Highlander having all that damage, having pretty good feats, I think makes them an S tier character. The next one in S is going to be Warden. I think most people would agree that Warden is very, very strong after the rework. The shoulder bash is insanely good. Being able to basically do a full charge shoulder bash and then completely feint it at the end is very, very good. The normal shoulder bash is hard to dodge. They can still hard feint shoulder bash into a GB, which works as well. And then if you get that full charge shoulder bash, you get a top heavy off. They also have the unblockable top heavy finisher, which you can bait into a GB. Zone isn't quite as good as it used to be. Valiant Breakthrough is a very good tool that was added, and the range on that is insanely good, which can be used in Dominion. And I think that, again, in anti-ganks, Warden just kind of thrives with, you can use your zone for AoE in there. You can start your shoulder bash and then switch to a different person and then be able to get damage off on there. Warden's got pretty solid feats, having, body count, second wind are pretty solid in my opinion. And then, just the strength of the character together. You still have the crushing counter from the top. There's just so many options that the Warden has that not all other characters have themselves, and he can just basically, just outclass them from his moveset. The final character that I will be adding into the S tier is going to be Shaolin. I think Shaolin is the best of the Wulin characters. Really strong in duels. The chi stance, you have so many different mix-up options. The kick is quite quick from chi stance. You can, if anyone tries to dodge, you could throw those undodgeable heavies. You can deflect. You can also crushing counter with Shaolin. It just feels like this guy is super quick and has so many options. His attacks, even when feinted, are really kind of hard to tell like what's coming through. A lot of his animations make it look like maybe it's a light and it's a heavy actually coming through, especially if you're low. If they just light you on the side once, you get triple lighted and you're probably going to die. In 4v4, again, super strong. Blink is on an insanely low cooldown and is a really good feat to have. That's probably one of the most annoying feats to go up against. And again, having nice AoE range with their attacks, you can do very, very well in anti-gank scenarios. So the Shaolin, to me, feels like one of the strongest characters. Definitely from the Wulin faction is the strongest, and just from the quickness, the options, all of the different things you can do, the mind games on it. He's a really cool character, don't get me wrong, but it annoys me every time I have to go and fight up against one. So this was the tier list, guys. I hope that you enjoyed. Again, this is just all my opinion. I'd be more than happy to have a discussion about this in the comments below if you do so choose. And let me know what you thought. Did you think this is spot on? Do you think that, you'd maybe change a few things? Do you think that it's just completely shit? Because I would like to hear. Remember, we're taking into account PC, 1v1, and 4v4s for this. So if you enjoyed this, leave a like, comment, subscribe. As always, it has been your boy Tony. I'll talk to you in the next one. Peace.